1 is for love, 11 is for hate, 2 is for happiness, 11 feels the gate, 3 is for nostalgia, and 4 is for dreams. 11 takes the blame and ruins everything. 5, 6, and 7 are a repeat of the first. 8, 9, and 10, the womb is ready to burst. And then there's the 11th daughter, sitting in the dark, the scorn of the world upon her, and sadness leaves its mark. A Xandarian rhyme.
Hello, it's Ren Presents time, and I'm your host, Ren, and welcome to part 2 of The Hazards of the Old Ones, the 11th Daughter, Chapter 1, The Shade Church. As we saw last week, the sisters revealed to the Countess of Blanchford that they were there to smash Captain Davidge and have him participate in their time-honored programmability, and Sig wasn't having none of it. Now, one thing, when the sisters come for programmability, they're not gonna take a donation. They're not gonna take a vial of seed or a cup full of seed. They want the whole enchilada, a full-blown sexual encounter with whomever, and they are not going to accept anything less. There is a very specific reason for this very obtuse carnal encounter, and we will find as the story goes on that the sisters, though polite and demure on the surface, are carnal beasts just bubbling to be let out. They get weirder and weirder as the stories go along, not only in this book but other ones, and you find that they do some wacky things. Lord Aram from the second series, Lord Belmont's helmsman, was untouchable, and that really wounded him that the sisters didn't find him worthy for smashing, while Lord Belmont had smashed over 20 times, so he was feeling left out. And when the sisters offered him a gift for assisting Lord Belmont, their it man, their chosen man, he wanted programmability with the sisters, and instead of being shocked, outraged, disgusted, put off, humiliated, the sisters were impressed. They're like, we didn't think you had the brass cojones for this sort of thing. Wow, we are impressed. And he picked a sister out, and they had programmability, and it was amazing, as Lord Aram would relate later. The sisters have a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and they have secrets that are deep and dark, and should they ever come out into the light, that could spell the end of the League immediately. And their programmability, their program, is just the most visible extension of this deep dark secret, sort of like a mushroom. It's just the fruiting body of a great vast network just beneath the surface. The same thing with the sisters. They are akin to fungi in that manner. And we're gonna see more and more of the sister secrets as we proceed into part 2 of the book. And this beautiful cover, painted by my good friend Carol Phillips, it relates to this secret in one way, shape, or another. We will get to it. Yes, we will. In the meantime, we continue with the book. Chapter 1, The Shade Church. And if you read the cat books or listened to the cat books, and I highly recommend you do, we've already seen the Shade Church. It is a training ground, if you will, where the black hats train their adepts, or the crawlers as they're known. And Cat, the featured heroine of the cat book, obviously, was a crawler in Shade Church, not expected to survive. Many of them do not survive. Only a select few survive and become black hats. Cat and her sisters, Mountain Walker, Bird, and Wheel, all of them, well, you're probably going to die. But Wheel was the one who really wanted to graduate, to become a black hat, to inflict all the pain and misery that she had felt and suffered through on other people, while Cat and her other sisters, Bird and Mountain Walker, wanted nothing to do with the black hats. Just a matter of perspective, I suppose. Anywho, we get into the meat of part 2, and that little weird poem I read, Xandarian rhyme, it sort of lays the groundwork, sets the tone for this part of the book, where the 11th daughter on Xandarr is just considered a bringer of doom. And as we learned earlier, Princess Vroc of the House of Xandarr, the youngest of their daughters, or their sons, is the 11th daughter, and they really didn't think much of her at the House of Xandarr, and we'll explore that concept as we go along. So let's begin immediately. Part 2, Chapter 1, The Shade Church. The surface of the island was bare, rocky, and covered with fitful patches of thin, sharp-bladed grass. The sky overhead was angry and turbid, her thoughts in a jumble. She shut down the engines of her small craft and sealed the hatch. "You'll be back for dinner? We're having a feast just for you." "Yes, Father, I promise I'd not miss it for anything." The wind whipped across the barren face of the island. It beat her short hair into an uncombed mass and made the lifting body shape of her ship jump up a little. She thought about the feast that was waiting for her back home, the grand table full of culinary delights. She had to hurry. She made her way inland across the rough, uneven landscape, careful not to twist or possibly break an ankle. Her boots felt the way with every step, and her gun belt jangled at her waist. She looked back. Her little ship sat lonely in the distance, framed by the angry line of the sea. She wished she was in it, on her way home to her family. She wished she was away from here. She hated coming to this forgotten, stormy place. Cloudy sky and frothing sea. She had to tell herself that her friends were here, and that she needed her medicine. She needed it badly. An animal cried out in the far distance, a big one. Sounded hungry, too. She thought she saw some sort of cat-like predatory animal with faint red eyes padding around in the distance, stalking her. She drew her Mazin gun and took the safety off. The butt throbbed with energy. She aimed and pulled the trigger. There was a microsecond delay as the gun charged, and then a messy lance of shapeless green energy surged out of the solid-faced head. She watched the lance spread out and dissipate after about 300 yards and let go of the trigger. The Mazin refreshed and then gave the reassuring double thump in the grip, indicating covertly that it was trigger-ready. She looked around. She didn't see the animal anymore, and warily continued, her gun held tightly in her hand. Ahead lay the ruins of a temple, stony and fallen down. The remains of once tall pillars were scattered about like forgotten donut-shaped toy blocks left out in the rain and covered with moss. The ruins seemed only just a few healthy strides ahead, But no matter how far she walked, it got closer at nothing but the most painful and sluggish of rates. The going was rough. The flat ground was deceptively pocked with ruts, depressions, and hidden drops. She frequently looked down to check her footing. Out of the corner of her eye, she was certain she kept seeing hints of a figure clad in scarlet standing amid the ruins, but when she looked straight on, she saw nothing. This was a hideous, haunted place, and she wanted to be gone. There was a strange smell in the air, an alkaline, salty, metallic smell, like blood or rust. It was strong, filling her nose, making her gag. All the death this place had seen entered her thoughts. Murdered. Hands at their throats. Angry hands, tearing, hanging from a hook. Bergen, cat's eyes staring, shadow tech oozing from their mangled bodies. She thought to turn and flee, to go back to her ship, hit the jets, and never come back. But she was a courageous girl, and she wouldn't back out, no matter what. Her friends were here, with her medicine. She kept telling herself that. The weather turned bad. It was bad to begin with, but now it was worse. In the far distance, a black cyclone formed over the sea, dancing slowly, roaring, coiling. It approached, horrible to look at. It was shadow tech. There was shadow tech everywhere here. She turned and continued. Finally, the ruins. She stepped up onto the old cracked platform. She could make out the weather-blunted indentation of an ancient basin. Here's where they were brought in the old days, the Shadow Tech girls, kidnapped from wherever. And here they were bled. Here their eyes were shut, hanging from a hook, waiting to be bought. This place was carved from cruelty and hidden pain. This is a sorrowful place, and the horrid sky was the last thing many a dying girl ever saw. Looking back one last time, the cyclone was closer, a black thread hanging from the laughing sky. Her ship was nowhere to be seen, too far away. Her heart sank a little. She spied a doorway in the distance, one that belched darkness. Spinning her mazzen with a showman's touch, she reholstered it and went towards the door. She reached the threshold and stood there a moment, seeing nothing within. Rubbing her nose, she entered, plunging into the immediate, unyielding darkness. She fumbled about, trying to make her way down, reaching out with her hands. Strangled them to death, feebly trying to lift her body up off of that hook buried in her back. The cat's eyes. She prayed to her father for guidance. She prayed for courage. "It is I, Princess Vroc," she blurted out with a touch of panic. After a moment, she heard a distinct hiss sound in her ear. Something gently took her by the hand and led her in some unknown, terror-filled direction. She tried to pull back, to flee, but whatever had her could not be escaped. Composing herself, relaxing, she allowed herself to be led. Her uncertain boots slapped against the damp, gritty steps, going down to a cool, deep dark. She had to remind herself she was a guest here. She was invited. She was the chosen. This was a place made out of shadow tech, a place built on the screams of the dying, or the only thing more common than cruelty was the scarcity of mercy. The bodies hanging on hooks, cat's eyes looking up at her. Eventually, the guiding hand, or whatever it was, pulled away and she stopped, standing in total darkness, struggling to keep her balance. She knelt down. Her searching fingers found the flat, damp stone floor all around her that seemed to go on for a good distance. She felt a bit claustrophobic. She was deep underground. Something spoke. No, did not speak. Growled.
"You have come again. The House of Xandarr still owes much."
She spoke into the air. "I have been invited. Nothing is owed. I have done what you asked. I have listened to you.
Your debt continues. Your debt is unending for all we have done for you.
She reached down and felt for the gilded silver hilt at her waist. She unsaddled it and fumbled with it in her hand. Having the Baron made her feel a bit better. I'm grateful for those things, and I am here at your invitation, she said again. I need my medicine.
Indeed.
In the distance, she could make out several figures emerging in the dark. The figures were robed in scarlet. Their faces were hidden behind black sashes. They were lit straight down as if from a spotlight high above, though no obvious light source could be seen. Their figures were distorted, as if she were seeing them through a dense particle-laced black mist. They swayed in a deep trance. Princess Vroc of Xandarr was surrounded by black hats in the heart of the Shade Church where the Black Abbess walked. I need my medicine. May I please have some? The black hats swayed and considered her request.
We have tasks for you.
I have done everything you asked. What more do you want? Suddenly, a creature emerged from the darkness next to her, illuminated in pale light. It was some sort of bone-thin, half-cat, half-monster, with a sunken chest and laden with teats. It stood on two legs, its arms were over its head, hands clenched into claws. Zow! It purred. Princess Vroc jumped a bit and raised her Baron.
Revenge. That is what we want. We want screaming. We want blood. We want locked doors and wary eyes peering out of darkened windows.
Get away from me. The thing faded into the dark.
Misery and bestial screams. We have allowed the League, and indeed the Zathans, to go on too long without a suitable display of our power. We shall make a bold statement. We've a grand venue set, and we intend to kill billions. There will be fear sown in abundance, and we shall have our revenge.
My medicine, please. A black hat appeared next to Vroc. The black hat danced with a light, airy grace.
Of course, child. Have your medicine here. Am I not your friend?
Vroc swayed. Yes. Cat's eyes, the clawed hands reaching up and pulling her off the hook.
Did I not free you from that terrible, terrible hook in Bergen?
Vroc wept at the memory. Yes. The black hand danced up to Vroc and raised a hand. She held a small vial with a mister. The black hat squirted Vroc in the face. Instantly she straightened and regained her bearing. What do you want? Vroc said in a firm, newly strong voice.
The Lord of Blanchford. We want his bitch. Our bitch that he has stolen from our midst. We want her right here on her knees, and we want his sister too. By rights, she belongs to us.
Another black hat spoke.
We want them alive, or dying, we care not, but they must not be dead.
The Countess Sigillis and Lady Poe. You want them here? And what of Lord Blanchford?
Leave Lord Blanchford to us. He will die in a place of our choosing. We want the bitch and his sister. We want them alive or in the process of dying but not dead. The bitch and his sister. The bitch and his sister.
Something screamed. Vroc, her medication in full effect, stood tall. I want Lord Blanchford for myself. I will give Lord Blanchford to my father as a gift.
Lord Blanchford is ours.
Sounds like you're rather frightened of him, are you not? Afraid of what he can do. Afraid of his light. Clenched hands came around her shoulders from behind and settled at her throat. Vroc, however, was unafraid. Yes, you are, aren't you? Not quite sure what to do with him. Yes, you've no defense against his sight, his light. He took one of the most mindless, most wretched of your ranks and turned her into a gown-wearing lady of standing. Think of what else he could do with his sight. The hand slid back into the dark.
The sight does not exist.
Vroc laughed. Ask the bitch about his sight. Yes, Sigillus of Metatron, an evil, repugnant woman made comely and whole, full of love.
Trance she is in. We will medicate it out of her, just like we medicate you. Purge it with pain and suffering. She will be evil again, or she will die as we watch, knowing there is no escape from our midst.
I will give Lord Blanchford to my father, and then I will bring you what you want. I will have them before you, crying, on their knees, dying. You will help me with Lord Blanchford.
You are in no position to make demands, Princess of Xandarr. Think of what we have done for you. Think of where you were.
The princess suddenly shuddered and fitfully pawed at her blueberry hair. I remember where I was and what you did for me and what you made of me, and I am grateful still. You need me. You want dying? Then you need me, and all I want is Lord Blanchford. For what he did to my sister and to my family, I want his head to give to my father. The black cat sprayed her in the face again with the mister. Again, Vroc's bearing changed, once sprayed. So what about it? She yelled. Do I get what I want, or do I walk away with all the gifts you gave me? You need me. The gallery of black hats considered her words.
You require a strong vessel. We will give you one. Your tutor will come with you, guide you, and give you your medication in timely doses.
I have a vessel.
You have a weak, flawed Zaffin cruiser that Lord Blanchford shall cut into pieces. We will give you a vessel. With it, you will face Lord Blanchford if that is what you wish. Then, you will bring us his bitch and his sister. Listen to your tutor. She will counsel you.
Princess Vroc stood tall. I was not aware the Black Hats had a force of ships.
We have been at work. We have reinvented Shadowtech. It is a vessel of our creation. It is a Shadowtech ship. It is time for the League and the Zappins to tremble at it. We are the new power. Under our reign, all shall die, none shall live. An empire of the dead we shall command.
Vroc wanted nothing to do with Shadowtech. I will use my cruiser. With it, I will defeat Lord Blanchford.
You will die in your cruiser.
Shadowtech is poisonous. Something clattered to the princess's right. There, gleaming in the dim light, was a black medallion.
You will not feel the Shadowtech around you. Now go and bring us the bitch and his sister, not dead, alive or dying, but not dead. If they are to die, it will be here in the dreaded darkness with us, and we will bleed them of what is ours.
She slowly picked up the medallion and placed it about her neck. The black hat began a droning, melodic cackle that rose to a shriek. Vroc, fully medicated, listened with mild interest. Behind, in the dark, a cat meowed. And with that, we conclude Part 2, Chapter 1, The Shade Church. So, we see Princess Vroc arriving to speak to the Black Hats, and apparently the Black Hats have been instrumental in getting her out of Bergen and training her on how to fly ships and how to do other things, which is sort of contradictory if you recall what King Hezru said, that the Xandars trained Princess Vroc and taught her how to fly a ship. So somebody's not giving the full story. And Princess Vroc appears at least at this early stage, to be a very unstable, unsteady person. Maybe she's fully insane. It's hard to say. And the Black Hats use medications to keep her wits about her. She seems quite dedicated to taking down our hero, Captain Davidge, and the Black Hats stinging from their loss of reputation. The Black Hats for centuries were feared in League society. The Black Hats were tough and evil, and the only people who could deal with them with any bit of alacrity were the sisters. But lo and behold, here comes just a League Lord, Captain Davidge, who turns a Black Hat and transformed her into his countess, and she's a charming, intelligent woman. And the Black Hats suffered a huge loss of face, where League Lords, always the copycats, they see one guy doing something and they're going to copycat it as best they can, are starting to go off into Zaffin space and seeking out Black Hats, trying to turn them themselves, although most of them end up dead. The Duke of Olin, who we saw earlier, captured a Black Hat and, thanks to Carahill, turned her. So we still haven't seen what the outcome of that is, but we will get to that. Don't you worry. Princess Vroc goes down and the Black Hats cajole her. They say they have a Shadow Tech ship just for her. There's some sort of cat-like monster roaming around in the dark. And if you notice, there's a theme of cats. Not just little pussycats, big scary monster cats. If you look at the cover of the book, which was meant to be a wrap, so you would only see the right side of the composition on the front cover. On the back, there's this creepy-looking cat with red eyes, kind of staring at them, at Carahill and Lieutenant Kylos. Now, what's that all about? Sig was seeing cat's eyes all over the place in the village. So was Kai. She saw a pair of cat's eyes when she opened up some of her marine mail. And here again, Princess Vroc arrives at the Shade Church, an apparently desolate place, suitably creepy and woe-begotten. But what does she see off in the distance as she arrives? Some sort of cat stalking her, like a big one. And then what does she see in the dark with the Black Hats? Another cat. And then she hears a meow at the end. Something's up with that. We don't quite know the details as of yet. But we do know that Vroc seems to be in league with the Black Hats and that she's struggling with her sanity, with her poise, and needs medication to stay stable to some extent. Next week, we continue with Part 2, Chapter 2, A Tearful Resignation. And I'll probably have to read, let me see. One chapter. Back in my early days of writing, I was wildly inconsistent with chapter sizes. Some of them are like in this book, there's some that are just a page long, while others are really long, like 10 to 20 pages long. You usually try to keep your chapter lengths consistent, approximately the same size. That's the goal, but it didn't happen with this book because I didn't really make it a priority to do that. But in any event, next week, Part 2, Chapter 2, A Tearful Resignation. So until then, my compachos, this is Ren Presents. I am your host, Ren. Peace out.